Hello and welcome to this review of Jim Beam Choice. Well, this is a rarity, at least in my case. Here's the story. Here's part of the story. Started looking at liquor about 2 years ago. Been doing wine since 2011. Some people say you're getting away from beer. I'm not getting away from beer. I actually drank wine before I started drinking beer in 1996. So it actually predates the beer hobby. So no, I'm not getting away from beer. I have so many beers backlogged, okay, believe me. But, you know, I'm interested in other products, so I started doing the brandy and then the whiskey, and I actually did Sazerac rye whiskey, which was the first liquor, about 2013 or whatever. All right, anyway, so I started doing Jim Beam, reading about it, and I said, oh yeah, that's interesting, it has a long history and all of this, and so I started reading about Jim Beam Choice, and I said, Jim Beam Choice, I don't know what this is. Apparently it used to be called Beam's Choice, and then they changed it at some point to Jim Beam Choice. Couldn't find out much history. Now, up until around maybe say April or possibly even May of 2017, they referenced this on the Beam-Suntory website, not on the Jim Beam website for that brand, but the corporate website. They talked about Jim Beam's Choice. They said it's aged 5 years as opposed to 4 for Beam, Jim Beam, the standard. And it's charcoal filtered, which the regular Jim Beam is not. So I said, I'd like to try that. So I got on their locator tool. Oh, not sold in your area. And I expanded the whole state of Louisiana. Not sold, not sold. So I could find it. I could see that it was sold maybe in Memphis, Tennessee, and in Kentucky. Some parts of Tennessee and Kentucky. I said, oh, well, if I ever go on a road trip, I'll buy it. So I went on a road trip to Kentucky earlier this month. Last month and then into this month. So I was on the Beam website. Let me find it. No, it's not sold here. Not sold in Frankfort, Kentucky. Forget it. I said, oh, can't get it. But you can get it in Bowling Green or Louisville at this this one place. They don't open till 10. You're not going to be, that wasn't going to work. And then Bowling Green, the guy says, yeah, I have that. I said, so on the way back to Louisiana, I'll stop. And I'll have to go way out of the way. It's not by the interstate or the parkway, whatever. Yeah, the interstate 65. It's going to be a big hassle. So I was in Frankfurt at Red Dot Liquors on U.S. Highway 127. And I said, I went in there. I figured I'd just ask. I've been asking around at different liquor stores, and people just give me a blank stare like, what are you talking about? They never heard of it. Oh, no, we got all the Jim Beam stuff over here. Big displays, all these things. I said, no, the Choice, the green label, no, they don't know what I'm talking about. I said, okay. So I go to Red Dot Liquor. After I went on the tour at Buffalo Trace, which, by the way, I highly recommend. So I go in there and I'm looking around. It's a wonderful liquor store. I mean, it's huge. They have all kind of beer, wine, and liquor. It's amazing. You can spend thousands of dollars. I said, you got Jim Beam Choice? I never heard of it. Both the guys say, we never heard of that. And then one of the guys said, I think I heard of that once. No, we don't carry that. I said, well, I've been trying to find it, but the company told me it was being discontinued because I wrote an email to Jim Beam and they told me it's going away. In other words, we're getting rid of it. So if you see it, you better buy it. I said, okay. He said, well, a lot of times when the word gets out that our liquor company is going to discontinue a brand, these collectors go out and just clear the shelves. I said, I didn't know there was a collector thing. Oh yeah. He said, oh yeah. They buy that stuff. And it turns out there is. They don't even drink it half the time. They just buy it. So I just started getting discouraged, and I told my friend David back in New Orleans, or in Jefferson Parish, I said, I'm not going to find it. Forget it. But I wanted some beer, so I went back to Red Dot later in the afternoon, which was not far from the motel. So I said, I'm going to go get the beer. I'm walking back to the back because the beer coolers are in the back, and I'm just talking on the phone to Paul. He does reviews, or used to, with us a lot. And I said, yeah, and I just glanced to my left, and my jaw dropped. And I see this on the shelf, 2 bottles, kind of covered with dust. I cleaned it off. So it was $14.99. There was no way I was not buying it. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I was just appalled, or I should say, not appalled, appalled that they didn't realize that they had the product in their store, which is not that uncommon for stores not to know what they carry. And then flabbergasted that I found it. I told David later, I got back. I said, got it. He said, what do I owe you? I said, you could have it. Just have it. Take it. And he said, I'm going to sit on this for a while. He told me that Saturday. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with this. He ain't going to open it, probably. He could see the collectability of it. So on the side, they show all the Beam people over the years, the founder, and then on the other side, there's a little story about this brand. They're saying, choice is made from an old family recipe. It was one of the master distiller's favorites, and that's why we have called it Jim Beam Choice, or originally Beam Choice. So I was like, well, see what I can find out. I started looking on the internet, and I'm seeing all these decades, I don't mean years, decades of collectible bottles they used to put out. This was like a major deal 45, 50, 60, 70 years ago. Not now, or even in my lifetime, maybe when I was a little baby. They would every year put out collectible bottles of different sizes and shapes with famous artwork on them. And then even later, artists they commissioned themselves to do wildlife scenes and everything. And each bottle was different, and like maybe a number. And people bought these. And I'm like, I didn't even know this was like... So how could that deteriorate from being like one of the major events every holiday season, you know, in like Christmas season, to now they're getting rid of it and no one's ever heard of it? Well, and then there's this whole thing about the green labels. The Evan Williams green label, Kentucky's first distiller. Okay, charcoal filtered. There's something about this charcoal filtering green label, different. And it seems like all the companies have. And then I found the Jack Daniel's green label, not the old number 7. I didn't realize till later. It's just number 7. There's the old number 7 black label. This one is called number 7. Comes from a different part of the warehouse. And I said, I didn't know this was a whole different world, you see, this green label thing. And apparently there's more of it from other brands. So, like Heaven Hill, and a lot of it. So this is sort of like a side project you could do. And so I was flabbergasted. And then people say, "Oh yeah," and it's like in the world of beer, you say St. Ides, you know, macro beer, but then to find like St. Ides Gold, a regular beer, St. Ides Gold, not the malt liquor, the gold beer, the regular 5% lager beer. I remember seeing this on the shelf on Canal Street, New Orleans, and I was like, yeah, I'm talking to my friend, yeah. You know, I gasped. Naturally, I bought that 6-pack as fast as you could say Jack Sprat could eat no fat. His wife could eat no lean, and betwixt the two, and then they licked the platter clean. So that was Detroit production. The Stroh Detroit. And so then I was in La Crosse, Wisconsin once in 2002, and I'm looking on the shelf in this grocery store, and I gasped, Colt 45 premium beer, cold filtered. So it was a draft, cold filtered, never pasteurized, Colt 45 beer. Well, you can imagine, I just couldn't believe it. This was back in the old G. Heilemann Stroh's days. I mean, just, you know what, this might have been 96. I'm thinking of 2002 when we went to see the Cubs. We didn't go to La Crosse. We went to some other stuff in Wisconsin. Okay, so forget that. This was in 96. Okay, yeah, this is the old G. Heilemann days, right before the buyout when Stroh's bought it. Okay, so 1996. I don't want to get that wrong. Yeah, 123rd day of 96. Okay. Wasn't passing that up. All right, so this is part 1, and then in part 2 we're going to get to the tasting. So I just want to go to the whole history. A couple of more things on this part 1. If you look at some old advertisements, like pre-Prohibition, maybe 1908, They used to call this Beam's Old Number 8. I kid you not. Beam's Old Number 8 bourbon. And it was aged 8 years back then, and it used to be 90 proof. And then later there was a 6-year age, 86 proof, and the modern version, soon to be gone, is aged 5 years, and it's 80 proof. So there's at least 3 different variants of it. And if you look at that old advertisement, it's so fascinating. They're saying, unlike some whiskeys, which are charcoal filtered before being placed in the barrel and aged, we charcoal filter our bourbon after it comes out the barrel, which makes it better than some of those other whiskeys. And obviously you know who they're throwing that at. They're throwing that to Jack Daniels, who does the charcoal, as they call it now, mellowing, filtering, but mellowing before it's placed in the barrel. So that was a shot over at them. So it's fascinating. I didn't realize this was like some big deal back then. And the green label Jack Daniels used to be very common. I was at their tour in the museum, and they had so many bottles back then. And maybe in some ways it was the more common version, perhaps 100 years ago. I don't know that, but it certainly was not rare like today. So I can't wait to part 2 to start tasting it. So if you're interested, join me in part 2, and thank you for watching part 1 about the Jim Beam Choice Kentucky Straight Bourbon.